Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi, Dylan.
Ryan, is that like a secret guilt trip to get people to turn on their cameras? It's like, I'm saying hi to you, so you should turn
Hi,
on your camera.
Haley. No, it's an overt guilt trip. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, Haley.
See, it works.
Mhm.
Everybody is
I want to
hi.
see your Dylan, since I have a Dylan. Hi, Cleo. Oh, hi, Dylan.
Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
Did
well.
Katie tell you that we both have a Dylan and we fight over whose Dylan is better?
I guess who's better depends on like
Because you
how is your
support us
Dylan
in similar
spelled.
ways.
Hmm.
And so we regularly argue about which Dylan is more important.
Well, I'll try and put up a pretty good fight. But
Katie's put up a real good fight for you, I have to say. Hey, Sean.
Hello. Sorry.
No
Unmute
worries.
is now off.
Hi, Nikki. Hi, Liz.
Hello.
Hi, Asani. Hi, Chris.
hello.
This is a fun game. I like this. Hi, Charles.
Well,
All right.
you officially have quorum if you want to start.
All right. Is there anyone that we know is coming that we're missing?
We have one more
Okay.
that I know of for sure.
Let's give him a second. We don't have Joan today, right?
Nope, Joan is gone. Joan is at the Housing Study Committee.
Oh, right, in Sedona.
Yep.
Okay.
And let's see. Trying to count all your faces as you move
I know
around.
Marshall can't be here today. Jacqueline Campbell.
I just sent her the link, so she is coming.
Perfect. I think that's all we're missing is Jacqueline.
Is the other one.
Tad is out of town.
He can't be here today, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that. My apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Then here she comes. Perfect.
Good morning.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Perfect. All right, we're all here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, just get to the top of my agenda. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. With a quorum present, the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Board meeting is now called to order. Please remember to mute when you're not speaking. Board members, please do not use the chat function as the audience watching cannot see it. Katie, would you mind calling the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Co-Chair Balch.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention board members, if you could just mention your affiliation as Katie calls the roll call, that'd be great.
Thank you. Tish Brown Gambino. Jacqueline Campbell.
Jacqueline here with US Vets.
Thank you. Liz DaCosta.
Hello, Liz DaCosta with Community Bridges.
Marshall Franklin and Todd Gary both can't make it today. Lisa Glow.
Lisa Glow with Cass here.
Thank you. Chris Hallett.
Good afternoon, Chris Hallett, City of Peoria.
Thank you. Sean Pierce.
Sean Pierce, Maricopa County.
Thank you. Joan Service also cannot make it today. Charles Sullivan.
Hi, Charles Sullivan, ABC Housing.
Danielle Wright.
Danielle Wright, the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Thank you. Co-Chair Ryan Balch.
Ryan Balch, City of Chandler.
Thank you. And Rob Podlager also can't make it today. So with that, back to you, Co-Chair Balch.
All right, thanks, Katie, and thanks everyone for being here. The next item on the agenda is a call to the audience. Members of the public were given an opportunity to submit written comments relating to this meeting at azmag.gov/comment within an hour of the posted start time of the meeting, or members can join the Zoom meeting by requesting the link from MAG staff or registering on the COC board meeting event page. If you are wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom and you will be invited to unmute at that time. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Katie, have we received any public comments so far today?
Co-Chair Balch, no public comments were received, and at this time, it doesn't look like any member of the audience has raised their hand to speak.
All right, thank you. Let me know if that changes. So moving on to the next agenda item, which is our consent agenda, which is something you all know we're trying to implement as we know we're going to be getting busier and busier. So I hope you had a chance to review your packets. Does any member of the board have questions or comments on the consent agenda, or would you like to pull an item off so we can discuss it?
Madam Chair, I have a comment I'd like to make.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Go ahead.
Yes, excuse me, in reviewing the HMIS data quality plan on page 5, just a comment really at the bottom, the last thing it says about funders are being encouraged to hold programs accountable to data quality by taking an active role in monitoring and enforcing data, by requiring submission of data plan quality reports and setting minimum data quality thresholds. I do think as a continuum, and a lot of us being in the industry somehow have contracts like this, I think there's a great opportunity for us to take advantage of these kind of words to try and put them into action. And perhaps we can come up with some boilerplate language to share with jurisdictions to use. And as a suggestion, it's one thing to say to encourage. I would like us separate action, obviously, but just commending the work done to get us here, but as a board to take it one step further and help produce such language to let those jurisdictions use them, or nonprofits.
I think that's an awesome idea, Chris, and it will help us all get the same kind of data and reporting as well. And I know that the ESG subcommittee has done some work around this, I believe, to put into ESG language. And I think we could probably start by looking at that shared language. Staff, if you would take that and that Chris's comment into account and get back to us on that, that'd be great. I know I would certainly, as a funder, love to have language like that. All right. Any other comments or any other item anyone would like to take off the consent agenda? So I'm looking over here because you all are over here. Nope. Okay. Then with no other comments, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Chris, I motion to approve.
Thank you, Chris. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Sean, thank you very much. So we have a first from Chris and a second from Sean. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, I will ask MAG staff to please proceed with the roll call. Please indicate clearly how you vote with a yay or nay after your name is called.
Thank you, Co-Chair Balch. Tish Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Liz DeCosta.
Yay.
Lisa Glow.
Yay.
Chris Hallett.
Yay.
Sean Pierce.
Yay.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Co-Chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
The motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Co-Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the next item. Chairs of committees with recent activity will be asked to share with us. Updates will also be provided in the monthly newsletter sent out by MAG, and a memo is included in the packet for reference. So per usual, first we will hear from Matthew Kelly with Mercy Care and Yasani Goodman with Phoenix Rescue Mission for an update on the Coordinated Entry Subcommittee. I see you both. Turning it over to you.
Hi, Yasani Goodman with the Coordinated Entry Subcommittee. I'm going to do 2 updates and then hand it over to Matthew for our last update. So our first update is that we have now started our application process for new members of the committee for Coordinated Entry. That does close on September 30th. So we have received quite a few applications, and we're excited to start the panel process in the weeks following after the 30th, so that way we can make a decision. Some of the open slots that we have is with the a jails representative, a single adult providers representative, an ESG representative, a funder representative, and persons with lived experience representative. And then some of the positions that are expiring currently on the committee is our Regional Behavioral Health Authority, as well as our family provider. And so we have a lot of opportunities for people to join the committee, and we're definitely excited to see who we get to bring on board to now join our committee for coordinated entry. The other update that we have is we have also started working with our leads, our coordinated entry leads on the family side, the single side, as well as for a representative of youth and also our DV representative to start compiling a standardized data set for our update meetings. So being able to receive consistent updates really for us every other meeting on specific data sets in order to be able to receive information on a more consistent basis, as well as something that's just streamlined where everybody knows what we're going to be hearing, everyone knows what information is going to be shared, and being able to have the leads, I guess you could say lead that effort and be able to provide us a standardized set of data. So that's the second update, and then I will turn it over to Matthew.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I want to go back to just please apply if you're interested. We really want to have a full committee for coordinated entry. We're going to be doing a fair bit of work, I think, starting the beginning of the year, and we want to ensure that we have as much representation on that committee as part of that discussion. With the CE evaluation kind of coming to a close, hopefully in the near future, and we're moving into action stages. With regards to the domestic violence work group, we have a couple of things that have been happening. So as everybody is aware, we have come to some agreements as far as improving the access portion of this, which is really ensuring that DV providers and individuals who are in those shelters are being able to be reported on the coordinated entry by name list. Unfortunately, there has been some hesitation from the DV providers to participate in that process that we've created. I know that Danielle, right, and Dana Martinez have been working to talk to the community individually to find out what some of their concerns are. So we're working to increase that. I'm super hopeful that we're going to be able to increase that participation. Part of the reason we need to do that is right now we don't have a true understanding of what the need with the domestic violence population is for coordinated entry and the different resources that exist. And for us to be able to start addressing prioritization and talking about it potentially prioritization specifically for that population, we kind of need to know what that need is. So we're working to get that improved. On a secondary note, we have also been working with some of the DV providers on a tool that they will be using on the DV provider side to actually prioritize individuals who are in shelter and seeking resources, and also be potentially engaged with DV providers, but maybe not in shelter due to lack of availability or just their acuity level didn't necessarily require that. So we're working with them to create a prioritization tool that the DV providers were going to be using. We were given a tool that was utilized in New York State when the EHV subsidies came out, and we kind of looked at that as an opportunity to create a prioritization tool for the DV community's resources, whether it be some of the available resources through coordinated entry or some of the resources that they hold outside of the coordinated entry system to give a more equitable access to those resources. So we continue to work with that, but I think we're continuing to make progress, and I'm happy to report we've had a lot of participation from different program managers at the DV providers. But again, we will be meeting in, I think, the next couple of weeks here to kind of revisit the prioritization discussion to see what level of information we have and whether or not we're able to proceed with that conversation. That's the basic update we have from here. Any questions on that? It was a lot.
questions, comments? Looks like Lisa has something.
Hi,
Lisa, you're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted now, I think. What's the hesitancy that you referenced in the beginning to be involved?
So I mean, and Danielle, you pipe in and correct me if I speak incorrectly for the community. I really think that historically there's been a lot of hesitation and I think a lot of pushback from the coordinated entry community, and there hasn't been a lot of results out of that for the DV population. And so us saying, hey, we created this brand new process, I think there's still a little bit of like skepticism with regards to that. And I completely understand that. So it's a matter of trying to have some of those individual conversations to tell them what we're trying to do. And I think my hope is that understanding without this data, we can't create a prioritization. But I think what's really important to acknowledge, we have both the singles and the families in agreement that they're willing to create a prioritization for the domestic violence population, but we need the data to be able to do that. So really getting that message across to the DV providers. They're commonly outside of coordinated entry. They don't really participate. They might even be a little bit skeptical of the coordinated entry system because they haven't necessarily had equitable access in their minds. So it's just, I think it's time, and I think it's persistence as well. And I'm willing to be persistent. And I think Danielle and Dana have both been persistent in working with the community.
Yes. Every meeting that I go to, every opportunity that I get, I just spoke at a meeting this morning and brought it up. So every opportunity that I can reassure them and, let them know how important it is to get through this process, to be able to prioritize victims later. I'm doing the best that I can, bringing Matthew into all the meetings that I'm holding so that he could speak to it as well. We're slowly moving the needle.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
I'm glad you asked that question, Lisa, for folks who are newer to our continuum. This is a historical, when coordinated entry was started. I mean, we've been having the discussion since then, but it's been there was so much storming and norming around coordinated entry itself, even for homeless providers, right? And then to try and bring in the domestic violence providers. And I'm so thankful that we have a great group taking this on now, and that we have Danielle's representation on the board now, because that really shows the commitment of the DV world to learn about this world. Even though there's so much intersection, there's also so much uniqueness. And so Danielle's a membership on the board really shows me that we are making progress, even though we're moving the needle slowly. It's about building trust and having benefits for on both sides. And it's a lot about the basic things, confidentiality, all that stuff. So I appreciate the discussion. And I really truly believe you guys are making progress, and that good things are gonna come out of this. So thank you for all your hard work, and on both sides, for the DV providers for coming to the table, and to the homeless providers for welcoming the discussion and all of that. So appreciate you guys. And it sounds like you're going to get a very robust new membership. So I'm excited about that as well. I'm glad you got so much interest. That's great. It's a really important committee, and it's hard work. So there's not a dull moment for that committee. So thank you to everybody who's showing interest. Any other questions, comments for Matt or Yasani? All right, thank you guys so much. I hope you'll stick around. Do any other committees or subcommittees have an update at this time? I know Joan's not with us today to provide an update legislatively. But we have so many other committees working. Is there anyone else who wants to provide an update, or any members of the board that have questions for a committee? No. All right, then we will move right along. All right, so here's a big one, the supplemental notice of funding opportunity, the priority listing. This is so exciting. this is the first time I'm going to say it's the first time because I think I've been with the Continuum of Care since it started. So I was going to say at least since I've been here, but I think showing my age, I've been here the whole time. So this is the first supplemental NOFO that HUD has ever released. It's so exciting to me personally, at least, that they've released it to focus on unsheltered homelessness, at least for our region. That's what it's being focused on. So I'm excited to talk about this. So let's see. So in June, HUD released a supplemental notice of funding opportunity. A second rank and review committee was assembled and has been hard at work interviewing applicants, reviewing written applications, and creating priority lists for the board to review. Before I turn it over to them to give us a presentation today on the process and their recommendations, I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the entire committee. And that is Andy Wambach, Nikki Ramirez, Jen Dengramond, Vanessa, I'm losing your last name because I want to call you one thing, but I'm not going to get it right. What is it? I don't see you. What's Vanessa's last name, Katie?
Carthel.
I can't. Can you? Carthel? Yes. Okay. Vanessa and Christopher. I don't know if I see Christopher on here either. What's Christopher's last name?
You a wave. Christopher Bart.
There he is, Christopher Bartz. I want to thank you guys so much. I had the opportunity to see you at an interview session, so I know how much work you put into reading all of the applications. I know there were a ton of applications, and I know what it's like to be on a rank and review committee. It's a ton of work outside your normal job. And it's a ton of commitment to really make these crucial decisions for our community. And I know there was a lot more ask than there is availability of funds. So that is always so hard. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm sure I speak for the rest of the board when I say that. So just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. This process obviously just would not have been a success without your commitment. So thank you. So I am now going to turn it over to Andy and Nikki to give a presentation on the priority lists. Take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Ryan. And there it is popping up. Here. So yeah, just thanks so much to the board for having us today, and also the opportunity to serve on the rank and review panel. As Ryan mentioned, it's a lot of hard work, but also very important and rewarding work that everyone on the panel really shared in that. Also, thanks to those providers that submitted applications for funding and your dedication to this process. I know I see a few folks on today, and definitely many more that also applied. As mentioned, it was a really exciting brand new opportunity for our community to really be able to think strategically on tailoring services to folks with severe service needs and really make a positive impact to those folks experiencing homelessness, but also on the overall response system. I think it was also kind of an opportunity to think strategically as a COC on engagement of non-traditional partners. It was encouraging to see some applications from maybe some players that we're not as familiar with. So with that, if you could jump to the next slide for me, please. Cool. So this is just a basic funding overview. Currently providing 3 years of funding, which folks could apply for. I think I would defer to Mag on kind of what the next steps are there, but I'm thinking HUD also is still, there's a lot to be determined. So HUD also listed a few, sorry, did somebody chime in there? Or?
Sorry, Andy, it was me coughing. I'll mute myself.
Oh, perfect. So there were 6 other priorities, really focusing again on that unsheltered, but specifically with severe service needs, involving a broad array of stakeholders, advancing equity, assistance for tribal lands, and a housing first approach. Always important there as well. You want to jump to the next slide, we'll kind of give you that breakdown of funding. So as you can see, all the projects in total applied for about 54 million. We had to make some difficult decisions, as Ryan mentioned, regarding funding, and that total amount is that 27,956,833 number on top there. So a lot of deliberation and seriousness taken in that decision making. We jump to the next one. So this just gives a breakdown of, we had the 21 projects submitted, really cool variety of programs applied for housing projects, 15 supportive services only projects. So even within that, I don't think maybe a single program was alike, just very unique, very different applications, but also again, a really great opportunity. We had an HMIS application and then obviously our planning as well. There was one application that withdrew and one that was ineligible. That was the planning grant. Next slide, please. So this describes, I know it's a little wordy, but it just kind of goes over a high level, the process that we use, kind of similar to that annual NOFO, but obviously some very different applications and nuances in that. But at a high level, right, MAG staff reviewed the eSNAPS applications, provided scorecards to renewal applicants, reviewed scores, had the opportunity to provide corrections and narrative. We also had the interview portion that Ryan referenced as well. There were interview points allotted and available there from the interviews outside of just scoring the applications themselves. Scoring is consensus based, so although each member on the rank and review panel would score, coming together over those 3 days to come to consensus was really where the magic happens. We did consider funding reductions for projects, and all in all, in a little bit, Nikki will go over the 4 different funding options that the group had come together and agreed upon. You want to go to the next one? I think also referenced before, this just shows we definitely had a diverse array of folks on our panel. Also a lot of experience, different experience, years of experience, and really coming together from our different viewpoints was great to be able to have and was a priority. And again, just a lot of time spent on this process, literally full days, not responding to emails either, right? We always think of multitasking, I think now in this world, but there was none of that happening. I'm going to go to the next one. So I'll kind of just touch a little bit on some of the differences. So this goes over our overall approach. I think one of the new things, right, MAG kind of had to develop a customized scorecard for this brand new process. Different from the annual NOFO, because some of these projects are new and innovative, there might not be a standard data set that we can look back to and say, oh, okay, really cut and dry, here's how you scored, and it's just auto scored. We didn't have that luxury, so a lot of it was kind of taking in that narrative and the data that providers could provide or were forecasting to provide. We also tried to be intentional as a group and leverage what data is available, right? So PIT data, maybe we are referencing system performance measures, some things like that. keeping in mind taking a regional approach. So regionality was definitely a consideration in our deliberation process. Things like length of stay in shelter versus number of folks outreached, right? And really trying to balance that was definitely a challenge and something that we spent a lot of time on. And obviously that big part is that HUD severe service needs and unsheltered population. So really making sure that we're keeping it within that lens as we were scoring, ranking, and reviewing. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my fellow panel member, Nikki Ramirez, and she's going to further outline our recommendations.
Thank you, Andy. Can everyone hear me okay? Cleo, Katie, great. Sorry, every time I get onto Zoom, my microphone does something unique. So good afternoon. To Co-Chair Balch and members of the board, I'm Nikki Ramirez, and it is my pleasure to be here today representing a team of esteemed colleagues that participated in the Supplemental NOFO Rank and Review Work Group. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a current member of our COC's Data Subcommittee and Race Equity Subcommittee, and was a member of the COC Committee for 3 years prior to my departure earlier this year. As an engaged member of our COC, I was pleased to see an enthusiastic community response to the NOFO with quality applications that incorporated thoughtful use of data and intentionality in their efforts to advance race equity and the inclusion of voices with lived expertise into the COC funded programs. It was an honor to have the opportunity to participate in this process, and I feel it enriched my perspective as I continue to participate in the COC subcommittees. With that said, I'll begin. If you can, okay, perfect. So we do have 4 ranked list options for your consideration today. In creating these, we looked at HUD's homeless policy priorities for this NOFO that focused on unsheltered homelessness, severe service needs, involving a broad array of stakeholders in our COC's efforts to reduce homelessness and advancing equity. Additionally, we were looking to leverage this new and temporary funding opportunity to meet the current needs of the COC that cannot be addressed in the annual NOFO. We looked at regionality across the county and areas served, as well as infrastructure to support the COC and this new endeavor of over $20 million worth of new projects. So with option A, it's very straightforward. It's just the raw score of the applications and the interviews. Option B takes option A and adds an emphasis on the unsheltered and those with severe service needs. It removes outreach and rapid rehousing projects and prioritizes increasing shelter capacity. You can go to the next slide, please. Option C takes option B and adds a focus on a population with severe service needs, where we elevated a project that is dedicated to serve those experiencing or going through human trafficking and their experience of homelessness as they exit. And then option D, it takes option A and then adds the goal of balancing increasing shelter capacity and increasing housing opportunities. Next slide, please. So you can see here through the side-by-side comparison, the impact of these funding opportunities. So option A, which is the straight ranking based off of raw scores, supports 2 outreach projects, the 3 shelters, 2 supportive service only projects, and would fund 90 housing units. Option B supports 1 outreach project, again, deprioritizing outreach projects, supports 3 shelter projects, 2 supportive service only projects, and would fund 40 housing units. Next slide, please. Option C supports 1 outreach project, 3 shelter projects, 3 supportive service only projects, and 40 housing units. And then D supports 4 shelters and funds 190 housing units. Options B, C, and D all have in common that they are supporting planning, HMIS, and coordinated entry expansion. You can go to the next slide, please. And ultimately, our committee recommends option B. We do feel that this best honors the board priorities, the intent of the NOFO, addresses the needs that we have in our community currently, and strengthens the capacity of the COC. Andy, do you want to jump in and add something? Did I miss something?
Yeah, no, that was awesome, Nikki. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify on our recommendation and prioritization of increasing shelter service capacity and not necessarily bed capacity. So I just wanted to clarify that, that with this funding, we're not technically adding more beds, but we definitely see some more beds coming online in the near future and really wanting to be able to address that in increasing or decreasing length of time in shelter and increasing those positive exits from those interventions.
Thank you, Andy.
Board members, the 4 lists were included in your calendar invite as well as posted to the website. So if this is too small on my screen or you wanted more details on the specific priority listing, those should be available to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Andy and Nikki. Does that conclude your presentation? I don't want to cut you guys off. Okay. All right, I want to reach out to the board at this point. There are many of us, myself included, who will not be able to vote today, but I want you to know that we can have a full discussion before a vote is taken. So are there any questions of the presenters at this time?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. You had mentioned your role with race equity. Was there a component part of these applications that dealt with race equity and how they either this project or their organization as a whole approaches it?
There was, thank you. That's a great question. Advancing equity was part of the HUD prioritization on the NOFO, and so the scorecard reflected that. We added 5 questions within the scorecard that addressed race equity or racial equity in programming, and then also it was one of the interview questions as well.
And do you possibly have a summary that you had 2 slides that said A and B, C and D. You have one that puts them all next to each other based on the categories that each one would fund, number of beds, et cetera?
I'm sorry, I am having trouble just hearing that question in totality. What are you asking? If we have one slide that does a side-by-side comparison of all of the or all 4 recommendations?
Yeah,
no.
but those slides with the categories that you had, whether it's 1 SSO, 40 units, et cetera. You had 2 slides, covered 2 slides, and then you had a recommendation. It'd been nice if it was all side by side and with the recommendation above it, just to know cross comparison of what we're looking at.
Would it be helpful, Chris, if we looked at those 2 slides again and gave it a little more time on those slides?
Well, yeah, I guess for me it was, and again, I'm one of those, I'm not going to be able to vote, but I've just, part of the questions I would have is what kind of went into it. You talked about, you recommended B, which falls in line with, so we all had a different series of slides in the presentation, and I just can't capture it all in my head. And I just thinking if we had one that kind of had it there, but if we reviewed it real quick, at least for those, if I don't want to ask for it if nobody else has an interest in seeing it, for sure.
I think we can take the time to look at those 2 slides again. We have time. Let's look at it.
And I have a question before we do that. That's okay. So dollars for shelter are not for new beds, but what are those going for? The ones for shelter? Because the SSO was for outreach and what else?
So SSO could be for support services within shelters, Lisa.
Okay.
So if I'll send it back to the committee to, if you want to give some examples of what those services might be.
Sure, and the question is what, I'm sorry, is it helpful if we go back to the slide so that we can capture what we're writing here. And Cleo and Katie, if you want to help me with how we organized the information on the slides when we have them up.
So of course, depending on the ranking, you know, the recommendation that's preferenced, you'd have to look at those particular projects. And then I think staff or the committee could speak to, for the emergency shelters, what kind of services that would be funding.
I'm hoping you all can see my screen with a side-by-side comparison of the 4 options. Great.
Perfect, Katie. How fast did you do that?
Magic in the background. I have a great staff. Going back to Lisa's question about what can be funded. So the actual bed itself cannot be funded, but all the supportive services, case management inside a shelter, getting folks faster connected to. So when we say 4 shelters or 3 shelters or 1 shelter, I guess it's 3 or 4. It would be the staff inside the shelter. It's not actually the bed itself, but for example, there's a shelter getting launched. Community Bridges North Mountain Healing Center is one of these, and that it's been prioritized. And it's not the bed, but it is the staff getting people in it and then getting people out of it faster. So they said that with case management, they would be able to do that faster. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, I didn't realize that was an eligible category. So thank you.
And similarly, when it says funds X number of housing units, what does that mean again, relative, similar to the shelters, I guess?
So I can jump in on that one a little bit. I think that's a good question because I'd like to highlight, right? So this was based on proposed number of households served. I think a majority of them being rapid rehousing programs. So it's not literal units, say at a property, right? This was anticipated number served. And Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong there. So in our recommended option B, the permanent supportive housing project was prioritized there for those 40 units and no other housing programs for that, just because of there were I think the market currently is challenging, and then also, right, our focus on severe service needs populations, keeping in mind that those shelters are going to be online, and that currently shelters, you know, it's just challenging to get folks moving quicker and quicker, right, when the demand is so high.
So I think what I would just clarify on that, to your question, Chris. So 90 housing units in the option A, which is based off of the raw scores, that is permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. In option B, we deprioritized rapid rehousing projects. So those 40 housing units are permanent supportive housing. That carries over into option C as well. And then option D brought rapid rehousing back into the fold within the prioritization. So that is a mix of permanent supportive and rapid rehousing in those 190 housing units.
And then what happens at the end of the grant, all these housing units?
That is the same question that we processed as well within our committee and talked about as far as what the moving on strategy looks like within those programs and the sustainability of those programs. And we did take into consideration how those applications were written with that in mind. But again, in the decision to fund housing, whether it be through permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing prioritized in option B was simply because it addressed a population with more severe service needs than rapid rehousing. But that was our question and concern for housing as a whole.
This is
Okay.
Lisa. I have another question. So traditionally, the COC has not supported operational support within shelters, and that this was considered different, right? Or is that something that's supported in the past?
No, and this still is not operational support within shelters. This is only for support services like case
Right.
management, et cetera.
No, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. But normally the CO.
There was a day
not
way
support.
back where supportive services only was a thing. It has not been a thing. That's my technical term. In the last, gosh, at least 5 years,
Thank you.
probably more.
Thank you. Got it.
As we shifted as a field to focus more on housing, SSO sort of went by the wayside, and then you saw transitional housing kind of go by the wayside, and now, and then rapid rehousing came into trend, and now we're swinging towards outreach, which has never been supported. Yeah. And remember, just for clarification, this was a sweep of unspent funds that HUD took a look at and said, you know what, we can do 3 years of funding for this greatly needed focus on people who are unsheltered with severe service needs, and also in a rural set aside. So they've given it this 3 years. That's what they have funding for now. My hope as a reasonable person would be that if projects around the country can show success in serving this severe service needs population over the next 3 years, that there will be some consideration for, congressional allocations, but, we'll see. It's definitely not a commitment beyond 3 years.
I am concerned that wasn't clear in the application, so I'm going to send an email to Katie on that it wasn't clear that case management was, but we'll take a look back at the language. But I just need to say that I know I'm not allowed to vote on this because we're in one of the recommendations. But
I think having read the NOFO from HUD, and then attended some of the webinars and also the presentations by MAG staff, I felt it was clear, but maybe we can have further discussion about that, Lisa, if it's helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else have questions before I call for a motion? Sorry, I'm trying to see you guys and see my other screen here. I'm just looking around. Are there any hands raised or anyone from the public that has raised their hand, Katie or MAG staff? Oh, hold on. I've lost all your faces. There you are.
Sorry, I had to stop sharing my screen. No one at this time in the audience has raised their hand.
Okay. All right. So at this time, could I have a motion to, whoa, I'm not on the right page. Give me a minute. Sorry, guys. Give me a second here. I had lots of screens going. Right. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this time, could I have a motion to approve option B as the 2022 ranked supplemental project priority listing? Oh, and so I should say, I think,
anybody can move to make that motion. You just
Okay.
can't vote. So anybody
Okay.
can move to make the motion.
okay, thanks for that clarification, Katie.
This is Charles. I'll move to accept option B.
Thank you, Charles. So we have a first. Can I get a second?
This is Letitia. I'll second it.
Thank you, Letitia. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I don't see anything or hear anyone, so Katie, if you wouldn't mind calling for a roll call vote, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Co-Chair Balch. I'm going to ask quite a few of you to abstain from this vote because you all applied for this application. So Tish Brown Gambino, I'm asking you to abstain. Jacqueline Campbell, I'm asking you to abstain. Liz DaCosta, I'm asking you to abstain. Lisa Glow, I'm asking you to abstain. Chris Hallett, I'm asking you to abstain. Sean Pierce, I'm asking you to abstain. Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Co-Chair Ryan Balch, I'm asking you to abstain. And with that, Charles, your vote carries.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you to the Ranking and Review Committee. Thank you to everybody who took time to put in this application. It was not easy. The timing was very quick. And I have to say, most of all, thank you to MAG staff who took on a second application in the midst of the first application. You guys have done a tremendous job at making this happen. I had the pleasure of reviewing not this application, but the regular NOFO, and man, was that a lot of hard work and very well done. So thank you, MAG staff, for making this possible for our region. All right, moving right along. Let's see. So over the past 8 weeks, the community has been hard at work in applying for the annual notice of funding opportunity. This is the other NOFO. The final step of this application is approval of the consolidated application. That's the one I just mentioned that I had the pleasure of reviewing. I believe it was 66 pages of really well-written narrative on our behalf as a region, and that did not even include the project applications. That just included the background information about our continuum. So great job, MAG staff. But now we have to improve that application, which was posted on the MAG website today. I honestly encourage all of you who want to see what we look like as a whole and how we present ourselves to HUD to take a gander when you have time. This piece of the application includes all of the work that's happening throughout our community. There is a ton of information about our DEI efforts, our inclusion efforts, going back to something you asked about earlier, Chris. There's a ton of information about how our coordinated entry works, about how we include and make sure we're serving survivors of all forms of violence. It is extremely detailed, and it will give you new perspective on everything that we're doing and how hard our staff is working. So I encourage you to read it. Do any board members have questions or comments about the collaborative application? Again, I did read it on our behalf. It is an excellent application. I do understand why we got the highest ranking we've ever gotten last year, and I think that will continue on based on what I read. Sean, did you have something? No, okay. All right, many of you don't have your faces on anymore, so it's hard for me to read you, but I don't see anything. All right, with that, could I please get a motion to approve the 2022 annual NOFO consolidated plan?
So moved.
I'm sorry, who I didn't see.
Sean Pierce.
Sean, thank you. Okay, we have a first from Sean. Is there a second from anybody?
Second and Lisa.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Do we have discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'll ask Katie to please proceed with the roll call.
You, Co-Chair Balch. Tish Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Liz DaCosta.
Yay.
Thank you. Lisa Glow.
Yay.
Chris Hallett.
Yay.
Sean Pierce.
Yay.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Co-Chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
Did I miss anybody? The motion carries it unanimously. Back to you, Co-Chair.
All right, thank you to that Ranking and Review Committee as well. Just tremendous job, everyone. I'm really looking forward to the results of our process this year. All right, moving right along. The community has been reviewing and approved changes to the community adopted best practices during their September meeting. Haley Owens is here with us today to provide an overview of the changes that have been made. Haley, take it away.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Balch, and thank you, board, for having me. Katie, can we pull the presentation up? Thank you. So today we'll be presenting on the proposed community adopted best practices. This was updated by the community adopted best practices work group by the RCOC committee. Next slide, please. I just wanted to touch on why this document was created/updated. It was developed as a way to establish best practices for all programs that serve individuals experiencing homelessness in this region. We want to highlight that this document was developed in collaboration with and approved by the COC's Lived Experience Committee. Service providers and funders were also involved in its creation. And equity is foundational in this document and should be understood that it is the basis of all the best practices included here. Next slide, please. Next slide. The operating standards seek to establish uniformity in how each agency should operate. Here we have a list of all the operating standards. I'm not going to go ahead and read them all to you, but I just wanted to highlight that in these operating standards, we changed a lot of language to make it more inclusive and client-centric. And then we also updated some of the language, my apologies, and added like a heat relief section that links directly to our heat relief network information. Next slide. And then in our safety, we had a little COVID-19 clause. We updated that to encompass any future health emergencies. So we just recommended that we have everybody follow the Department of Health recommendations. Next slide. Next slide. First has been adapted from the USICH Housing First checklist. This model emphasizes the client autonomy and agency and minimal barriers to entry. And the diversion portion is adapted from the National Alliance to End Homelessness and highlights the need for commitment, conversation, and creativity when implementing this practice. It also addresses the necessity to ensure that the client is being diverted, where the client is being diverted is safe and meets their needs. Next slide, please. The outreach section has been adapted from USICH core elements of effective street outreach to people experiencing homelessness. Systematic, coordinated, and comprehensive outreach focuses on working with and within the network of services, as well as with coordinated entry and HMIS. Housing focus discusses connecting to housing in a timely way that gives agency to the client, follows the housing first model, and meets their needs. Person-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally responsive emphasizes respect for and autonomy of the client. This includes meeting the client where they're at mentally, spiritually, and culturally. Safety and reduce harm focuses on ensuring the safety of all individuals by employing harm reduction methods. Next slide, please. Next slide. This section was added. We had encampments added to this section. Just want to mention that. The encampment section is adapted from the USICH 7 principles for addressing encampments. Principle 1 focuses on ensuring coordination among all relevant partners, including but not limited to public officials, providers, the continuum of care, encampment residents, and others. Principle 2 highlights the importance of engaging with encampment residents and making them part of the decision-making process to the extent possible. Principle 3 discusses connecting encampment residents to services and engaging them before encampment closures. Principle 4 addresses keeping community spaces open and accessible. It also addresses the need to provide storage and to avoid destroying personal property when an encampment is closed. Next slide, please. Principle 5 states that encampments should not be closed unless there is access to low barrier shelter. Principle 6 focuses on linking people experiencing unsheltered homelessness to stable and successful permanent housing opportunities and services. Principle 7 addresses coordination among providers, cities, and volunteer organizations to create a plan after an encampment is closed. Next section. Next slide. So this and the following sections, all the ones that fall under shelter and housing, are pretty self-explanatory. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. But if you guys have any questions, we can certainly go into that. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Again, you see these pretty self-explanatory sections. Let's go to the next slide. I do want to highlight for these next three sections, my apologies. The best practices are a little bit stacked. So for permanent housing, you'll follow all these best practices, and then we'll go to the next slide. And then rapid rehousing would be all the ones that are in the permanent housing, and then adding all of these to rapid rehousing. Next slide. And then permanent supportive housing stacks the other two. So it's just tons and tons of best practices. They all build on each other. So I just wanted to highlight that as you're reading through / have already read through the best practices. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I know that was a ton of information. So if you guys have any questions, I would be more than happy to take them now. Otherwise, I am all done. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Haley. I know I was glad to see these best practices get updated. I will admit that I forgot that we had them for a while there, and when I re-reviewed them, I was like, oh yes, this is such a great document for our community and something to refer back to when we're updating our own policies and procedures for providing services, and when we're writing grants, and when we're trying to collaborate with other partners, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for bringing this back to our attention and updating it with the most current information. Are there any questions, comments from the board? Sean, are you raising your hand? Yeah, please go ahead.
I am this time. Yes, thanks. So my concern about this, I think it's great. And my concern is what you just raised, Ryan. I mean, we can do these awesome plans, but then where are they sitting, right? Are they sitting? And I think of, you know, police departments that obviously get called into these things. Are we having those conversations both as providers as well as practitioners to really support the police in their response? I think in addition to that, any neighborhood responses to encampments or to other, you know, things that would make neighbors not to be as friendly to the folks that we're really trying to make sure that we're engaging with. You know, I would like to see a plan for us to actually get out there and use this and get some feedback from people. I think a lot of times also, I've worked in government for many years, and one thing we're really good at is we can put things together, but we don't always get it outside of our doors. And so I'd like to see us actually put together, whether that be at the subcommittee level, an actions plan as to how we can engage people in this and give them these resources and actually get feedback, because I really believe that this should be a living document, that this shouldn't just be grabbing best practices from across the country, because what works in certain communities won't work here as well. And we have, you know, and what might work in a small community may not work as well in a large community. It can be also very, very resource driven. And so I'd like to see some ways to make sure that we customize this to be more Maricopa County focused, as well as to the local jurisdictions, cities, towns, and unincorporated areas. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Those are some really great insights. I saw some, other hands and head nodding and whatnot. Chris?
Yeah, just to piggyback what Sean just said, basic question, what happens to this once it's adopted? Do we have a distribution plan? Or I know a lot of our discussions lately is kind of what as our role, how do we influence others, participate? So just like an earlier comment, what do we do with this? How do we put it into play? How do we take those words from encourage to an action oriented, like Sean was proposing? So if adopting it's one thing, all for it, great work, applaud all those who put time and effort into it. It's a great roadmap. Now, how do we engage those who actually should be reading and utilizing the component and resources?
Thank you, Chris. Well said.
Ryan, if I could respond to that. So we've gotten quite a bit of feedback on this, even further on the community adopted best practices to put a little bit more metrics in place too, both from ESG and from the local jurisdiction committee. So we're actually going to be kind of even taking this a step further of what percentage should be exiting positively from shelter, what, like all of those different metrics to not only be aligned with your system performance measures in the board strategic plan, but also how can we do better as a system overall. And so we'll be working with the committee. You all have tasked the committee with looking closer at the system performance measures. So I think kind of getting this back in front of people was the first step, but then how do we take it even further? It will also, once you all approve it, will go on our website under our policy manuals and forms. We're still building out that entire section of our website. If you haven't been there, it is probably your best resource. That is where your HMIS policies that you all approved under your consent agenda and the ESG and COC written standards will go. So that kind of is a one-stop shop if you're not only COC funded, but you're operating within the COC as to where to go to find all policies and procedures.
Okay. I felt like I saw Liz. Yep. There you are, Liz. Please.
Yeah, just first of all, like fantastic job, because this has been a request, that's been out there for a while. And so like the ability to come in and complete something is huge. And you guys did a really good job, very thorough. I do think we placed a lot of emphasis on outreach. And I don't know that we placed enough on shelter, especially knowing that we just went into a supplemental NOFO and are coming in and using our HUD funds to support shelter. So I do feel that there's still quite a bit more work to be done in that area, and I would be interested in helping with that or pulling some shelter managers to help with that. One thing I was wondering is, and Sean kind of led me there, is has this been run by the outreach teams at all? Okay, excellent. And that's where we heard back from them. Sorry, Katie, I saw you nod your head. So
yeah. This has gone through a series of work groups, and I will try to name them all and maybe still not get them all. So staff, feel free to jump in at any time if I've missed one, but it went through Outreach Collaborative. It went through the committee multiple times. It went through lived experience. It went through local jurisdiction. It went through ESG committee. Staff, did I miss anything? I see nods heading saying yes.
Yeah, fantastic. That's just because I think that's where we might get some more of like the application information or like targeted outcomes that I do agree that we're still missing. But again, excellent job taking it on and getting it to where it's at. And I think we really need to focus in on shelter. One thing to make note of what I think we're missing most in shelter is like the connection to the behavioral health system. So how are we going to be meeting severe service needs within our shelter? So trying to clearly define that as a community and try to standardize that across shelters would be great.
Thank you so much, Liz. Sean, did you have something?
Also thought maybe it could be considered for next year for maybe part of the scorecard. What opportunities have you used to engage others in best practices, or how have you used best practices? And maybe we don't go that far the first year, but maybe it's some additional points or something. If you can point things out that have shown that you've utilized this tool. I also think it would be a great thing to make sure that while it is on the website, and I think that's a wonderful resource, people don't always know which websites to go to. And so getting something out there for some of the, again, smaller jurisdictions who may be struggling with how to respond and how to engage a service provider in this conversation in a very inclusive way would be helpful as well. So thanks.
I'm just going to throw this out there for a potential future suggestion for the group too. Again, great job, the group. This is, I'm so glad to see this come before us again. It's been a little while, and I know you guys have been working on it for a while. One of the things I really loved about the two new community toolkits that we've put out there, the first on interdepartmental homeless operations teams, and then the other on community courts, where they also both had a case study. And that was, you can read about what it should look like and why, and it's a best practice, but then just to look at an example of what somebody is doing in that area that utilizes the best practices, I think is super helpful. So maybe a suggestion for the future would be to add, and maybe not a total, what were those? They were, case studies, maybe not necessarily an entire case study, but examples of how the best practices are used in different projects. I too think, like Sean mentioned, that for jurisdictions or providers that are just getting into the game and don't know how to bring it from policy to practice, some examples or people they could reach out to that are strong in one area or another might be an helpful add in the future. So great discussion. Any other discussions on? Oh, Amy Schwabenlander has raised her hand. Are you able to, can Mag help Amy speak?
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Madam Chair and board and staff. This is really exciting to see a best practices document, and I would focus on it is a best practices document. So way back in the day, we also had a document that was called service standards that got into the goal setting and the measurement and the metric behind each type of intervention. And I think that's really where it starts to have more teeth and where funders have to also support the same thing, because the COC funding, as everybody knows, doesn't fund 100% of anything. And so like, I love the idea of tying it to the rank and review, the scoring application, everything. However, the funding that any program receives through this process isn't 100%. And so how can the other funders come on board with the same best practices, the same measurements? And then my one question is whether or not this has been run through the municipal response group or whatever that name is, because there's an action plan that was approved by the cities and towns. And so it would seem to me that the cities and towns have to also sign off on these are the best practices that they agree are going to achieve the goals of their action plan. Otherwise, they will be two distinct, separate things. So thank you for listening to me. Good job.
Thanks so much, Amy. And I can answer that question. It was at the last meeting, right, Katie? I feel like we voted on it in the last meeting of the local jurisdiction subcommittee. So very good point. Okay, anybody else? All right, awesome discussion. Again, thank you to the many committees who have taken a look at this and will continue to look at this in the future. Can I have a motion to approve the changes to the community adopted best practices?
Hi, this is Jacqueline. I make a motion to approve.
Hi, Jacqueline. Thank you very much. I have a first. Can I get a second?
This is Chris. I'll second it.
Thank you, Chris. So we have a first from Jacqueline and a second from Chris. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, I will ask Katie to proceed with the roll call and yeas and nays.
Fish Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Liz DaCosta.
Yay.
Lisa Glow.
Yay.
Chris Hallett.
Yay.
Sean Pierce.
Yay.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Co-chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
Did I miss anybody? Motion passes unanimously. Back to you, co-chair.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to the next agenda item. In August, we opened up board membership. A board membership work group met and reviewed applications, and Katie is going to provide us with an overview of the recommended new members recommended by the membership work group and provide any additional comments. Katie?
Sorry, I'm still trying to be able to share my screen and unmute at the same time. It's a work in progress, friends. So membership work group met last week, reviewed applications. It was quite a few folks had applied for membership. They scored applications just like you all have in the past using a scoring tool. And so wanted to open it up to the membership work group if you all had any comments to add, and you all are recommending bringing 6 new members on. They're shared on my screen, but I'll go ahead and read them through also in alphabetical order by last name. So no in particular order, Michael Hughes with a New Leaf, Natalie Lewis with City of Mesa, Rachel Milne with City of Phoenix, with Marshall Franklin stepping down, Vicki Phillips with Community Bridges, Joan Service with Arizona Housing Coalition, and Charles Sullivan with ABC.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you to the review, to the application review committee. Thank you for this first review, and thank you for your continued service throughout the year as needed. Do any of the members want to speak, or are there any comments from the board or questions?
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit, Chair.
Thank you.
The second time I've served on this, and it's quite interesting. I think my committee members would agree. It's always an experience, especially from the first review of the first application all the way through to the very end one. And I would encourage those who have applied previous or before. It was eye-opening for me just to know when I have to resubmit, don't take for granted anything that anybody knows you. Everything has to be scored equally based on the submittal. I've learned a lot just on that, and I encourage others, if you're coming up for renewal, don't assume anybody knows anything about you, because we have to read it as though we don't, and often that's the case on others. So put your best foot forward when you do that. Don't assume, especially on renewals, that you're a shoo-in.
Thank you, Chris.
And I just want to welcome the new board members. It's going to be a busy and strategic year, and I'm excited. Some folks are renewals. I think 2 were renewals, and others were seats that we needed also to make sure we had representation from Mesa and Phoenix too. So welcome.
Just to clarify, representation from East Valley and Central.
Thank you. Yes, correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we officially vote this new slate of board members in? I can't see everyone on my screen at the same time right now, so someone please holler. Okay, I don't see anything, so could I get a motion to approve this slate of 5 new board members?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Danielle. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
This is Letitia.
Okay, thank you, Letitia. Is there any discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, I'll ask Katie to please take the roll call.
Tish Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Liz DaCosta.
Yay.
Lisa Glow.
Yay.
Chris Hallett.
Yay.
John Pierce.
Yay.
Charles, I'm going to ask you to abstain. Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Co-chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, so welcome new board members. It's a very esteemed group of colleagues. I know each and every one of you, so welcome, and I know you will all take this very seriously, and I look forward to the good work that you guys will continue to bring to our community. Thank you again to those of you who did this hard work. Now that we have new board members, it's important that we say goodbye to the old ones. So I want to take a moment to say thank you to our outgoing board members. There are 5 of us. 2 are being renewed, so we don't have to say goodbye to them. So that's fantastic. Thank you to Charles and to Joan for re-upping your commitment. It is a big task. It takes a lot of time, so thank you. But I do want to say a huge thank you to both Marshall Franklin, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, from the City of Phoenix. She's been an important member of the board for several years. We know that Rachel Milne will do a fantastic job representing the central area. And then to Liz DaCosta, who is here with us today. Liz, your voice, I don't mean to please don't take this as that anyone else's voice is less important, but Liz, your voice has been extremely important over the years. I know your voice will continue to be a very important voice in our community, member of the board or not. But what you've brought to the board, I think, is really unique and impactful. You're so smart, you're so analytical, and you're so passionate and so dedicated. And I know I have truly just appreciated everything you have to offer to the board and to our community. And I know we'll still get that. So I'm very happy about that, but just very special. Thank you, Liz and Marshall, for your incredible impact on the board over the years. Before I turn it over to comments, I also just want to say thank you to my fellow board members and to every member of our Continuum for providing me the opportunity to serve over the last several years. I too am terming off this board, and it has just been such a great pleasure to do this work, to work with you. I feel like the last year or two, when we've been doing a lot of strategic planning and I feel like we've been in a period of renewal. And I feel really blessed to have been able to be a part of this period with all of you. And I will still be attending every board meeting and all of that. And I'm sure my fellow outgoing members will be doing the same. We're not leaving. We're just transitioning into roles as members of the audience, members of the committee, and we trust the great work that will continue at the Continuum to all of you who are still there and all of the new members. It's been a pleasure, and I want to turn it over to any other members of the board who want to offer thoughts or comments.
Well, thank you, all of you. And I want to thank you, Ryan, for being willing to take on this chairmanship and co-chairmanship, because it's a lot of work. So really appreciate you and your leadership. You brought us along. I've been only on the board a short time, but through strategic planning and new directions, you laid a lot of tremendous foundation. And thank you to the other members as well.
Thank you. It's really been an honor.
Yeah, I want to jump in. So thank you so much for your kind words, Ryan. It has been an absolute pleasure. And like Lisa mentioned, I don't think that we could have really dove into the renewal and being strategic and updating our mission statement and all these different things without having you as our leader. So thank you for the time that you put into it and your leadership along the way. It's greatly appreciated. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
I want to echo both of those. You both have been, and Marshall have all been great role models, just the short term I've been on here. And I just want to say, I think it's no coincidence we've been scoring as high as we have recently due to both of your leaderships and participation, along with that, the staff support of MAC. So thank you all.
Thanks so much, Chris.
I'd like to echo that too. Ryan, just thank you for welcoming me to Arizona with open arms and really taking this leadership role to a whole new level of professionalism. I've learned a lot through watching you, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. So with that, in my last act of leadership, I'm not going to let everyone off the hook so easy. You and me, Liz, we are going to have one more meeting. So Katie did send out, just when we thought we were exiting the building, not quite. Katie did send out a meeting, invite this morning for a meeting on October 10th at 1:30. We do need to have one more meeting with this particular group before the new members start to approve the supplemental NOFO funding opportunity consolidated plan, just like we did for the regular NOFO today. So once that eSNAPS application is totally complete, we need to vote on that to make sure it gets to HUD. So that will be October 10th at 1:30. So everyone remain in place for one more meeting, and then our new members and the new group that will lead us into the future will start on, I believe it's October 31st, Halloween. I would suggest you all wear costumes, but since I'm not here, I guess I can't require that. Katie said she was going to throw candy out. I don't know how she's going to do that virtually, but I think it'll be a fun first meeting for you all. So, but I will see you all one more time on October 10th, and I would appreciate if you can all be at that meeting to please do that. With that, our next agenda item is request for future agenda items that will not be for the October 10th meeting, but will be for your first meeting on October 31st. Is there anything anyone would like to see in particular? Don't worry, Katie has a long list of things that we always look at to create every agenda, so you don't have to suggest. It's okay. All right, I don't see anything. Let us know if that changes. And for this next agenda item, comments from the board. Is there anyone on the board who has announcements, events they would like to highlight, or anything else? There are a lot of exciting things going on in our community. There are also a lot of unique things going on in our community right now as issues emerge. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? Katie.
Thank you, Co-Chair Balch. With Co-Chair Balch leaving us, unfortunately, that means we also need a new co-chair to join Rob. If anybody is interested in being a co-chair with Rob, our fearless leader, please send me an email with a letter of interest, board members, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or my staff.
I would like to highlight, if we've done this already, please just smack me through. I mean, if you could throw candy at me, Katie, you can smack me. So I would just like to note that Katie has been promoted. I feel like we haven't talked about that. And she is now the fearless leader of the MAG COC team, including all the great faces you see on the screen, Haley and Dylan and I think we lost some people, but who else? There was someone else. Oh, Cleo. So congratulations to Katie. We are in amazing and excellent hands with her leadership. So yay, Katie. If anyone would like to say anything, there's nothing but smiles from her team. I see that. So look at those smiles. Yeah, Dylan, there you are. I have so much confidence about our future and Katie's leadership. So thank you, Katie. Thank you, MAG team, for making this incredible team available to the continuum of care. I think it's the strongest team we've ever had. And I continue to just see great things under your leadership, Katie. So congratulations and thank you. Anyone else have comments, questions?
Just my goodness, congratulations, Katie. You are absolutely a force. And so I see you didn't want me to say anything, but you just have to. You're absolutely fantastic and so well deserved.
Yeah, I echo that. Congratulations, Katie.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, is she just trying to slip this by us or what? That's not happening. Yeah, no. Okay. All right.
Leave it to Ryan to embarrass you on YouTube. It's fine.
Sorry, but all right. That's another of my last acts, Katie. You're welcome. Okay. All right. If nothing else, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 2:59. Thank you, everybody. That was a big agenda, and I will see you all on October 10th. Have a great week.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.